I'm so glad you guys enjoyed the extra content that I posted. I'm going to do some more Twisted Truth videos for you guys here soon. I have about 2 of them all ready to go. I have a missing persons case for you this evening, and we were talking at work the other day about how we just can't believe how people go missing when there's so much CCTV footage all over the world today. And this is a case that involves that. So I hope you enjoy. This is the case of Janine Vaughn. In late 2001, Janine was managing the Ed Harry menswear store in Bathurst, 200 kilometers west of Sydney, Australia. Do I have any followers in Australia? I don't think I've done many cases from here. She was immaculately put together. She was a shopkeeper who was described as warm, funny, and unpretentious. Customers described feeling immediately at ease around her, which I think is great because I hate clothes shopping and I need somebody to tell me what looks good and what doesn't. Described as outgoing and vivacious, she was 31 at the time of this case. She was known for modeling in hair and fashion shows, and for playing sports like netball, basketball, and softball. Janine was a relative newcomer to the area. She relocated from her home of Muswell Brook in 1998 to move in with her boyfriend at the time. Janine's otherwise happy childhood in a loving household with extended family was kind of marred by her estrangement from her biological mother, who abandoned her at birth. By early adulthood, Janine yearned to settle down and form a family of her own. She felt really adrift after her aforementioned relationship ended in the year 2000. And so she decided to fling herself back into Bathurst's social scene. She spent the night of Thursday, December 6th, 2001, drinking and dancing with friends Jordan Morris and his girlfriend Juanita Murphy. At 3:47 a.m. on that early Friday morning, revelers spilled out of Metro Tavern, the trio of friends among them. CCTV footage captured Juanita and Jordan in a lover's quarrel, and Janine visibly distressed because she had lost her purse earlier in the evening. However, she kind of rallied the group together and convinced them to push on to the nearby Oxford Hotel a few blocks away for one last round of drinks. Janine is walking in front of Jordan and Juanita, about 40 meters ahead of them. They're still kind of bickering as they walk down Keppel Street, and the drizzle of rain soon becomes a downpour. A car appears, performing a U-turn before pulling up alongside Janine, who got into the car and has never been seen again. Grainy CCTV footage indicated that the car stopped for approximately 27 seconds, while multiple eyewitnesses recall it was red. Her stepmother Jenny said it was raining. She didn't have a purse. She had no money, no phone, no key, and it was just as if someone she knew, like from the shop or someone she knew around town, that she would have gotten in. She would not have gotten in the car with someone she had just met that night. It was someone she knew and trusted enough to get into the car. Now, Janine was supposed to work later that Friday. She was the manager the state manager. Serena made several attempts to contact Janine through the morning and made arrangements for the store to be opened in her absence. Later that day, after hearing nothing from Janine, Serena reported her missing to the police. As the police investigated, they discovered that Janine had never made it home after the club on Friday morning. They obtained the CCTV footage from outside the club and observed her walking along the street. The weather was particularly bad as, I mentioned, there was a heavy rain in the early hours of that morning. But you can see the car on the footage stopping and turning back and stopping beside Janine. The footage shows the car door opening and Janine getting in. It was around 3:50 a.m. and she got into the front passenger seat. Police believe the car was a bright red four-door medium-sized sedan, similar to a Mitsubishi Magna or a Toyota Camry. So police are wondering who is driving this car. Janine's friends and family, again, both did not believe she would get in the car with a stranger. She was well known as the manager of the menswear store. She was acquainted with many people, and the town itself had a population of 27,000 people. And Janine had lived there for 3 years. So she loved nothing more than to go out with her friends and to meet people. So again, she knew tons of people. That night at the Metro Tavern had been no different, but when police discovered that she didn't have a phone or even the key to get into her house, they searched for her purse and found it in the bathroom of the club. Police weren't sure if she'd left it there herself, and just couldn't remember where she put it because it was actually concealed and shoved into a corner with packets of chips in front of it. Police appealed to the public, and a woman named Lynette Borland came forward. She told police that she had been out that same night that Janine was. She was at a friend's house, and she had left and tried to hitchhike a ride home. She told the police that she had been walking toward a service station nearby in the hope that somebody would pick her up same shopping center where Janine worked. He answered questions and assisted with the investigation, but after answering questions on 3 different occasions, he opted not to assist any further without a lawyer present. Andrew Jones and Dennis Briggs were identified as persons of interest in the case, but with nothing to connect them to her disappearance, they kind of had to move on. Another person of interest, and the reason why some people believe that the investigation was tainted, was a local detective and former deputy mayor of Bathurst. His name is Brad Hosmans. He was the officer originally in charge of this investigation, even though he faced charges in relation to a separate matter. It was alleged that he had assaulted a woman. He was charged with obscene exposure, assault, indecent assault, and assault occasioning actual body harm. You are an investigator and you're still investigating cases? Okay. The incident in question was alleged to have taken place at a Bathurst Golf Club bar on the 21st of October, 2001, 7 weeks before Janine disappeared. The alleged victim was a 24-year-old woman who worked at the club. Brad denied the claims and was later acquitted of all charges. During those charges, which were pending at the time of Janine's disappearance, Brad was allowed to be involved in her case. No. Okay. But that was not the main cause of concern. It wasn't. There was another reason Brad should not have had anything to do with Janine's case. There were question marks as to how well he knew her. Despite people making it clear that there was a connection of sorts, it was alleged that some of the statements outlined or referred to their connection were not recorded in full or followed up on. Operation Rani was set up. It was an investigation by the Police Integrity Commission into the police force where Brad worked in relation to the investigation of the disappearance of Janine. The commission's investigation focused on the role of Brad in the initial investigation in Janine's disappearance and the manner in which any association between them was investigated. On the 2nd of June, 2005, so 4 years later, the Commissioner of Police received an anonymous letter. Why haven't you done anything about this B. Hosman here in Bathurst, especially about that? He did that woman who is still missing. He tried to sleep with her and she knocked him back even on the night she went missing. Everyone knows about it and you do too, and you haven't done anything about him. Put him in jail where he belongs. Some nurses at the Bathurst Hospital know that he did it and they are too frightened to speak up. They were there that night, as he will get at them too, like he has others before. So not the most eloquent letter, but kind of suspicious if you ask me. The investigation revealed a number of people who knew Janine told police that she had mentioned Brad to them. The commission investigation revealed further details that had not been recorded and were not on the police file. Janine's state manager at the store, the one that reported her missing, Zarina, told police she had conversations with Janine 4 to 6 weeks before she went missing, and Janine had told her that she had met an ex-copper who was also on the local council, and that she was going to go out with him. She told police that a couple weeks after Janine told her that the guy wasn't for her, that he was harassing her. She claimed Janine told her he'd bought her flowers and would not stop calling. Janine did not tell Zarina that the ex-copper was Brad, but the fact that he was on the store every time he walked by, and it is gone. What? Rachel Green, a woman who worked at another clothing store in town, told police Brad had asked her about Janine and said that he thought she was attractive. Other people saw him walking past the menswear store and looking at Janine. Some friends claim Janine told them Brad was calling her at night and asking her out. She declined, but didn't really know what to do about not being interested because of his position. They described her as being concerned as to what to do, but she didn't seem scared of him, they said. Daniel Murphy, who worked at the Ed Harry menswear store with Janine, told police that a couple of weeks before she went missing, she told him that she had received 2 phone calls, one at 7 p.m. and one at 8 a.m. the next morning. When she called back, she got the reception for a motel, but they wouldn't give her any information as to who was staying there and who could have called her. Rebecca Medhurst, a friend of Janine, provided information to the police about a conversation she'd had with Janine on the 5th of December. Janine was telling me that one of the local police officers had been showing interest. She said that Brad had walked past the shop a few times, waved and winked at her. She said that she'd seen him talking on his mobile out front and that he smiled and looked into the shop while he was talking. She thought it was good because she thought he was a good sort and she was flattered by his interest. The only thing was, she thought he had a bit of a bad reputation with women, that he was kind of a womanizer. She was disappointed because she thought that he was a more mature man showing interest in her, particularly after she'd been out with Dave, who was much younger and not at all ready to settle down. Now, when they talked to Brad, he denied having any interest in dating Janine. He did admit he thought she was attractive. He said that he'd never called her, he'd never sent her flowers, or even waved or winked at her when he walked past the men's store. Further suspicion arose when it was determined that Brad may have been in Bathurst the night that Janine went missing. When he was originally asked where he was, he told police he was at his mother's house in Newcastle from the 3rd to the 7th. But his phone records later revealed he was back in Bathurst on the 6th. He got petrol at a South Wyong station on the 6th, which also would have indicated he was driving home from Newcastle. The commission found no evidence indicating that Brad was involved in any way in Janine's disappearance, or that he'd ever even spoken to her or met with her. He was cleared by police of any involvement. After the Police Integrity Commission investigation into the role of Brad came to an end, the Special Task Force, Strike Force Mountbatten, assisted in the search for Janine. A search had previously been carried out just a few months after she went missing at a number of areas around Mount Panorama, and some 30 hectares of bush was searched, but nothing of any value was found. It was the same with a later search, and while some skeletal remains were uncovered, they were not connected to Janine. Police presumed that Janine was deceased. An inquest into 2009 to try and ascertain what may have happened found that she had died, but her cause of death remained undetermined as her body had not been located. I don't know how they could say that she was dead if they haven't found her body. That's, you could say presumed, but I don't know. The inquest heard from her family and friends. Her former partner, Philip Evans, said that she'd been stalked by someone. He did not know who was following her, but noted she had been left flowers, notes, and even lingerie on her car while she was at work. In relation to the alleged confession by Dennis Briggs, the inquest heard from Peter Barker, who told the coroner that he'd confessed to him and his eyes were fixed on a spot like he was really living something. He confirmed that Dennis later told him that he was making it up and only joking. what kind of person jokes about stuff like this? Creep. Evidence and statements were also referred to in relation to Brad and Andrew, but ultimately, after hearing from several witnesses over the course of 10 days, the coroner ruled that Janine was murdered by an unidentified person or persons. A few years later, in 2013, detectives from the Homicide Squad's Unsolved Homicide Unit established Strike Force Toco 2 to reinvestigate Janine's disappearance. The reward for information, which leads to the arrest and conviction of those responsible, was increased to $1 million US, which is absolutely crazy to me. It is the highest I think I've ever seen. The Homicide Squad commander, Detective Superintendent Scott Cook, said, "Our investigators have been meticulously working through what happened to Janine in the moments leading up to and after she got into that red car that morning. We know about 10 minutes before she was seen, another woman was approached by a man in what we believe is the same vehicle." And he appealed to anyone who knows anything to come forward, no matter how small. To this day, Janine has not been found. No body has ever been located. No one has ever been convicted in relation to her disappearance or murder. Police believe there are people in Bathurst who know what happened to Janine, but they have not yet revealed what they know. Anyone with any information that may assist Strike Force Toco 2 investigators is urged to contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-333-0000 or at the website that will be listed down below in the description of this video. So let's talk about this. I think it was Brad. I don't know if the man had access to a small red car. I couldn't find that information, but I do fully believe he was a womanizer. He found her attractive. She let him take her out on a date. She realized she wasn't interested, and she was like, "Take a hike," and he would not take no for an answer. And he thought that either he could convince her or unsettle her by walking by and waving and sending flowers and leaving stuff on her car. I believe all of that fully. I think Brad definitely had something to do with it. The fact that the police did not document or log in full all of the information that was associated with this case further makes me believe such a thing. I don't know how it works in Australia, but here in the United States, police will cover one of their own, and I hate that I even have to say that statement, and the fact that it is true. I think that you shouldn't cover for your own if they've done something wrong. However, I believe that investigators covered up for this man, and he basically got away with it. I can't for sure say why she would have gotten into the car with him, except for the fact that it was raining. I don't know where she was going to go with no phone, no key to her house, no money. Maybe, I don't know, I guess if he was harassing her and potentially, like, bothering her, she wouldn't have been like, "Hey, can I go stay at your house tonight?" I wouldn't have. But I think he was extremely angry that she wasn't as interested in him as he was in her, and he did something to her. Now, whether it was on purpose or an accident, I don't know that. I wasn't there. I don't know this man. However, I have reported on many, many cases on this channel where they have claimed it was an accident, and maybe it was, and maybe it wasn't. Maybe he made a move and she said no and he got mad. I just talked about a case on Patreon where the guy got enraged and like stabbed her 18 times, over like something so simple that he could have just left. So I think maybe that was the case. He was so interested in her. He thought that she was so pretty trying to go after her. She was trying to get involved with this man that she felt was more mature, that, oh gosh, kind of had his life together, and, she was excited about that. She wanted to settle down and have a family. So she did give him, a chance, but I think, you can pretty well tell after one date whether or not you're further interested in spending more time with a person. But I feel like maybe he was a little arrogant, and the fact that he was described as a womanizer to me kind of makes me believe that he just wouldn't take no for an answer. So I do think it's strange that Dennis confessed the whole thing and then laughed and joked it off and said, oh no, I was just kidding. Who does that? Who just is like, oh yeah, it was me, and this is what I did, and I assaulted her and I killed her, and da-da-da. Who does that? There has to be something at least a tiny bit mentally unstable with you, because you really could go to jail for that. If you said it to enough people. We've definitely talked about people going to jail for less things than that. I'm not sure why Andrew, the pharmacist, was brought into the equation. The only thing is the access to the little red car and him knowing her. I do wish I had access to the paperwork in these cases so I could find out what led the police to these conclusions. Obviously they're not just going to release it to me, but sometimes I wonder, how did we get here? Where did this guy come from? For all we know, he didn't even talk to her but once in her life, Maybe when she picked up a prescription. I don't know. I have to feel like if I went missing, the police wouldn't have anyone to talk to because I don't associate with anyone. And do not say I lit up a room, just saying. I do not. I think this is terrible. It has been 23 years and she has not been found. 23 years for her family to not know where she is. I read that her dad was pretty ill last year. I don't know if he passed away. I can't find it in myself to really research kind of parental passings. But if he did, I can only imagine how extremely sad it was for him to pass without knowing what happened to his daughter and her siblings, to kind of not really be able to kind of go on. Her one brother said that, it's kind of, there was a big age gap, so they kind of didn't really know each other as well as they should, and having there a 16-year-old age gap between my brother and I kind of understand that. If he'd gone missing when I was little, I wouldn't have much to share with people. But it's sad, and it's crazy to me that we still have people that just poof, even though this was caught on CCTV footage. Imagine if the camera had just been better, or maybe it had not been raining. We could have gotten maybe even a partial license plate on this car, or a make and a model, and maybe been able to solve this case.